Mail-order bride arrived with no hopes, but the cowboy taught her what love really meant. She arrived in the small town early in the morning, when the sky was still pale and the air felt heavy with dust. The train had stopped with a loud sound, and for a moment she stayed seated, holding her small suitcase tightly. This was the end of her long journey, and also the beginning of a life she had never truly wanted, but had no choice but to accept. She stepped down from the train slowly. The ground felt unfamiliar beneath her shoes. Around her, the town looked quiet and rough, nothing like the place she came from. A few wooden buildings stood far apart, and the land stretched wide and empty in every direction. It felt lonely, almost too quiet. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She had crossed many miles to reach this place. Each mile carried fear, doubt, and memories she wished she could leave behind. Her life before this moment had been filled with struggle. She had grown up learning to survive, not to dream. Hope was a luxury she had lost long ago. The decision to become a mail-order bride was not made with excitement. It was made with tired eyes and a heavy heart. She had reached a point where staying meant suffering, and leaving meant taking a chance. This arrangement was not about love. It was about safety, food, and a future that might be a little less painful than her past. She had read the letters many times during her journey. The cowboy's words were short and polite. He did not speak of romance or grand feelings. He spoke of hard work, simple living, and honesty. That honesty was the only reason she had agreed. At least he had not lied. Still, standing there now, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. She scanned the platform, searching for the man she was supposed to marry. She did not know what he looked like, only that he worked with land and animals and lived far from the busy world. Her hands felt cold even though the sun was rising. After a few moments, she noticed a man standing a short distance away. He wore a worn hat, boots covered in dust, and a plain jacket. He did not rush toward her. He simply waited, as if giving her time. His posture was calm, but his eyes watched carefully. She knew instantly it was him. He removed his hat slightly when she looked at him, a quiet sign of respect. There was no smile, no excitement, just a calm presence. For some reason, that made her feel a little less afraid. They walked toward each other slowly. When they stood face to face, neither of them spoke right away. Words felt too heavy for such a moment. "You must be tired," he finally said. His voice was steady and gentle, nothing like the harsh tones she was used to. She nodded, unsure what else to do. "I'm glad you made it safely," he added. No welcome speech, no questions. Just simple concern. He took her suitcase without asking and carried it easily, leading her toward a waiting wagon. She followed behind him, feeling like a guest in someone else's life. As they moved away from the station, she looked back once, watching the train disappear. There was no going back now. The ride to his land was quiet. The wagon moved slowly across wide fields and dusty paths. The sky grew brighter, revealing endless open space. She had never seen land stretch so far, without walls or crowds. It made her feel small, but also strangely free. She tried to prepare herself for disappointment. She told herself not to expect warmth, kindness, or care. This was an agreement, nothing more. If she stayed useful and quiet, she would survive. That was all she asked of life now. The cowboy guided the wagon with ease, his eyes focused ahead. He did not stare at her or ask uncomfortable questions. The silence felt strange, but not threatening. Still, her body remained tense, as if waiting for something to go wrong. After some time, he spoke again. "The house isn't fancy," he said, "but it's solid. You'll have your own space." Those words surprised her. Her own space. She had not expected that. "That's fine," she replied softly. He nodded, accepting her answer without comment. When they finally arrived, she saw a small house surrounded by open land. It was simple, made of wood, with a sturdy look. A few animals moved in the distance. The place did not look welcoming, but it did not look cruel either. It looked honest. As she stepped down from the wagon, she felt the weight of her choice press down on her. This was her new home. This was where her future would unfold, for better or worse. Inside the house, everything was clean but plain. There were no decorations, no signs of comfort beyond what was needed. He showed her a small room and told her she could rest there. "You've had a long journey," he said. "Take your time." She thanked him quietly. When she was finally alone, she sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her suitcase. Her hand shook slightly as she opened it. Inside were a few clothes and the last pieces of her old life. Tears filled her eyes, but she forced them back. Crying would not change anything. She lay down, listening to the quiet sounds of the house. No shouting, no footsteps filled with anger, just silence. Her thoughts wandered to the life she had left behind, the fear, the uncertainty, the constant worry. She had come here with no hopes, only the need to escape. Love was not part of the plan. Happiness felt too far away to imagine. Yet, as the day passed and the sun moved across the sky, something unexpected happened. She felt safe enough to sleep. That alone felt like a miracle. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. She did not know the man she had married or the life she had stepped into. But for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to rest without fear. And though she would never admit it aloud, a small thought crossed her mind before sleep took her. Maybe this place would not break her. Maybe this new life would teach her something she had forgotten. How it feels to breathe again. The next morning, she woke before the sun. The room was still dark, and for a few seconds she forgot where she was. Then the quiet reminded her. No city noise. No voices arguing nearby. Just the soft sound of wind brushing against the walls. She sat up slowly, her heart beating fast, as if expecting trouble to appear. But nothing did. She dressed quietly and stepped out of her room. The house felt empty but not lonely. It carried the smell of clean wood and early morning air. From outside, she heard movement. She followed the sound and saw the cowboy already awake, working without making noise. He moved with purpose, as if the day had been waiting for him. He noticed her and nodded. "Morning," he said. "Good morning," she replied, unsure if she was saying it correctly, unsure of everything. He did not ask questions. He did not stare. He simply went back to his work. That small act made her feel less like a stranger. She stood there for a moment, then asked if she could help. He paused, clearly surprised, but then pointed to a simple task. "Only if you want to," he said. That sentence stayed with her. Throughout the morning they worked side by side, but not together. There was space between them, both in distance and in feeling. Still, the silence felt calm, not heavy. He explained things when needed and thanked her when she helped. Each word was short but respectful. Inside the house, she noticed how carefully everything was arranged. Nothing extra, nothing broken. This was a place built for function, not comfort, yet it was cared for. It reminded her of him. Quiet, steady, and careful. Meals were simple. He placed food on the table and waited for her to sit before eating. No rules were spoken, yet his actions showed manners she had not expected. She kept her eyes lowered, eating slowly, afraid to do something wrong. After the meal, he stood and said, "If you need anything, tell me." She nodded, though she did not know what she could possibly ask for. Days passed, each one similar to the last. He worked long hours outside. She stayed inside or near the house, learning the rhythm of the place. He never told her what to do. He never raised his voice. Sometimes that made her more nervous than if he had. At night, they sat in the same room, separated by silence. He read or fixed tools. She stitched or simply watched the fire. They did not talk much, but when they did, his words were honest and direct. She noticed he never entered her room without permission. He knocked even when it seemed unnecessary. That small act built a wall of safety around her heart. Still, doubt followed her everywhere. She wondered if this calm would break. She had learned not to trust peace. In her past, peace never lasted. One evening, rain fell hard against the roof. Thunder rolled across the land, loud and sudden. Her body reacted before her mind could stop it. She froze, her hands shaking. The sound pulled memories from places she kept hidden. He noticed immediately. "You're safe," he said, not moving closer, not touching her. "It's just a storm." He spoke like someone who understood fear. She nodded, breathing slowly, forcing her body to listen to reason. That night she slept poorly, but she did not wake up afraid of him. That was new. As the weeks went by, she began to see more of who he was. He talked to his animals with care. He repaired things instead of throwing them away. He treated the land like something living, something deserving of respect. She began to wonder why a man like this had chosen such a path for marriage. One evening, she finally asked, "Why did you choose this?" she said quietly, staring at the fire. "I'm not good with people," he said at last. "I work better with land, but I didn't want to be alone forever." His honesty surprised her. There was no sadness in his voice, just truth. She nodded. It made sense. In return, she said nothing about her past. She was not ready. He did not push. Slowly, the house began to feel less like a shelter and more like a shared space. She found herself humming while working. She laughed once at something small, then quickly stopped, unsure if she was allowed to feel light. But he smiled when he heard it. That smile stayed with her long after. One afternoon, she tripped while carrying water. She expected anger. Instead, he rushed to her side, helping her up without a word of blame. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head, stunned. "Be careful," he said gently. That was all. In that moment, she realized something important. This man was not watching her to control her. He was watching to protect. The thought scared her more than cruelty ever had, because kindness could change her, and she was not sure she knew how to handle that yet. Still, when night came and she lay in her bed, listening to the familiar quiet, her heart did not feel as heavy as before. The house was still quiet. Time moved differently on the land. Days did not rush past the way they used to in her old life. Instead, they unfolded slowly, one task at a time. At first she counted each day, unsure how long she would last here. But as weeks passed, she stopped counting. Life settled into a quiet rhythm, and without noticing, she became part of it. She began waking up with the sun, not because she had to, but because her body learned the pattern. The air in the morning felt fresh, and the silence no longer scared her. It felt steady. She would step outside and breathe deeply, letting the open space calm her thoughts. Sometimes she watched the cowboy from a distance as he worked. He never hurried, never wasted movement. Everything he did had purpose. He started leaving small things for her without saying a word. A clean cloth placed where she worked, a cup of warm drink left on the table before she woke, extra food set aside when he knew she would be busy. None of it was announced. None of it came with expectations. That was what made it matter. At first she told herself not to read meaning into these actions. She had learned the hard way that kindness could hide other intentions. So she stayed careful. She thanked him quietly and kept her distance. But deep inside, something began to soften. One afternoon, while she struggled with a task she had never done before, he stopped his work and came closer. Instead of taking over, he showed her how to do it, slowly and patiently. He let her try again, even when she made mistakes. "It's fine," he said when she apologized. "Everyone learns." No one had spoken to her like that before. Not without judgment, not without frustration. She felt heat rise to her face, a mix of embarrassment and something else she could not name. She focused on her work, afraid her eyes might reveal too much. As days went by, she noticed how he listened. When she spoke, even if her words were few, he paid attention. He did not interrupt. He did not correct her. He accepted her words as they were. That simple respect made her feel real, like her voice mattered. One evening, as they sat near the fire, she spoke more than usual. She talked about small things, memories of cooking, a song she once heard, a place she missed. She stopped suddenly, worried she had said too much, but he did not pull away. Nodded, asked simple questions, and listened until she finished. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to," he said. "I know," she replied, and for the first time, she truly did. There were moments when fear returned without warning. A loud noise, a sudden movement. In those moments, her body reacted before her mind could catch up. She would freeze or pull away. Each time he noticed. And each time, he gave her space. That space became a gift. It told her she was in control. Slowly, she learned that she could breathe through the fear, that nothing bad followed, that safety could exist without conditions. One day, she found something broken in the house and tried to fix it herself. When it did not work, she felt a familiar wave of frustration. In her past, mistakes had never been allowed. She expected anger to follow. Instead, he looked at it, smiled slightly, and said, "We'll fix it together later." Not blame, not disappointment, just together. That word stayed with her. Over time, she started helping more, not because she felt she had to, but because she wanted to. The land began to feel less strange. The animals no longer made her nervous. Even the quiet felt friendly. She caught herself laughing again, not often, but enough to surprise herself. The sound felt unfamiliar, like a memory from another life. Each time it happened, she felt both joy and guilt, as if happiness was something she did not deserve. But the cowboy never questioned it. He smiled when he heard it, and that made her chest feel warm. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with soft colors, they stood side by side without speaking. The moment felt full, even without words. She realized she was no longer counting the hours until night. She was living them. She began to trust the routine, trust the quiet. Trust him. That trust scared her, because trusting meant opening a door she had kept locked for years. It meant allowing hope to step inside, even if only a little. And hope had once hurt her deeply. One night, she woke from a bad dream, her heart racing. She sat up, shaking, unsure where she was. Before panic could take over, she heard a calm voice from the other room. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe." He did not ask questions. He just stayed awake until her breathing slowed. In that moment, she felt something shift inside her. A wall cracked. Not enough to fall, but enough to let light through. The next day, she surprised herself by sharing a small truth. Not her whole past, just a piece of it. A feeling, a fear. She spoke slowly, carefully. He listened. When she finished, he said only one thing. "Thank you for trusting me. No pressure, no advice, no questions." That was when she realized his kindness was not accidental. It was a choice, a steady one. As weeks turned into months, the house changed. Not in appearance, but in feeling. It held warmth now. Laughter had touched its walls. Silence no longer meant distance. She began to care about the land, about the animals, about the man beside her. And without meaning to, she began to care about herself again. She still did not call it love. The word felt too big, too dangerous. But she knew this much. She no longer felt alone. As the seasons slowly changed, so did she. She did not notice it at first. Change rarely announces itself. It arrives quietly in small moments that only make sense later. One morning, she realized she no longer woke up with fear sitting heavy in her chest. Another day, she noticed she walked through the house without feeling like she was borrowing space. This place had begun to accept her, and somehow she had accepted it too. The cowboy never rushed anything. He treated time like a companion, not an enemy. When work was hard, he worked steadily. When rest was needed, he rested without guilt. Watching him taught her something she had never learned before, that life did not have to be survived every second. It could simply be lived. They began working together more often, not because he asked, but because she offered. He showed her how to care for the land, how to notice signs in the weather, how to understand when something needed attention. He never spoke down to her. He explained things clearly and waited until she understood. When she succeeded, he nodded with quiet approval, as if it was expected all along. That belief in her abilities slowly changed how she saw herself. One afternoon, while fixing a fence together, she made a mistake that caused extra work. She froze, expecting the familiar feeling of being blamed. Her shoulders tightened, and her breath became shallow. But he only laughed softly. "Happens to me too," he said. "We'll fix it." That simple reaction stayed with her for days. It was proof that mistakes did not always lead to pain. Sometimes they simply led to solutions. As trust grew, words came more easily. Not long conversations, but honest ones. She asked about his past. He shared pieces of it without drama. A lonely childhood. Years spent working alone. Losses he carried quietly. He did not speak as someone seeking pity. He spoke as someone who had learned to live with what life gave him. In return, she shared a little more of herself. Still carefully. Still slowly. She talked about how she used to feel invisible. How fear had shaped her choices. She did not describe details. She did not need to. He understood enough. And that was enough. One evening, they sat outside watching the sky grow dark. The air was cool and the land felt peaceful. She realized she had stopped waiting for the day to end. She wanted to stay in the moment, to hold on to the quiet comfort of sitting beside him. She spoke without thinking. "I feel different here." He looked at her, not surprised. "Different how?" "Lighter," she said after a pause. He nodded. "I'm glad. No claims, no expectations is happening. Just acceptance." There were still hard days. Days when old fears returned. Days when her thoughts became heavy and her smile faded. On those days, he did not try to fix her. He simply stayed steady. His calm presence became an anchor. She learned that strength did not always speak loudly. Sometimes it simply remained. One night, a strong storm hit the land. The wind shook the house, and the sound pulled memories from deep inside her. Her body reacted before her mind could stop it. She felt small and unsafe, even though she was not. This time she did not hide. She stepped into the shared space, her hand shaking. He noticed immediately. Without a word, he placed a chair near the fire and sat across from her. Not too close. Not too far. "You're not alone," he said softly. She sat down, holding on to the sound of his voice. They stayed like that until the storm passed. No touching, no pressure, just presence. When it was over, she felt exhausted, but also proud. She had faced fear without running from it, and she had not been judged for it. That night marked a quiet turning point. After that, she began to trust her own strength. She spoke more freely. She smiled without quickly hiding it. She allowed herself to enjoy small joys. A warm meal, a shared laugh, a calm evening. Each one felt like a gift she was finally allowed to open. The cowboy noticed the change, though he never commented on it directly. He only adjusted naturally, as if they were learning a shared rhythm. They moved around each other with ease now. Their silences felt full instead of awkward. One afternoon, she caught him watching her while she worked. Not in a way that made her uncomfortable. Just thoughtful. "What?" she asked, half smiling. "Nothing," he said. "Just thinking." "About what?" He hesitated. "About how far you've come." She had not thought of herself that way. That night, lying in bed, she reflected on the person she had been when she arrived. Tired. Empty. Expecting nothing. That version of herself felt distant now, like someone she had once known. She still carried her past, but it no longer controlled her. Trust had grown through everyday life, not through promises, but through consistency, through respect, through patience. She realized something important. Love did not always begin with strong feelings. Sometimes it began with safety, with being seen, with being allowed to exist without fear. She did not say the word out loud, but in her heart she knew she was no longer just surviving. She was healing. The change did not happen all at once. It settled into their lives quietly, like the way morning light slowly fills a room. She did not wake up one day feeling certain about everything. But she woke up feeling calm. And that calm became her new truth. By now, the land no longer felt strange under her feet. She knew where the paths led, where the animals liked to rest, and how the wind sounded before the weather changed. The house carried warmth in its walls. It held shared routines, familiar sounds, and moments that felt gently stitched together. This was no longer a place she stayed out of need. It was a place she chose every day. The cowboy had changed too, though in quieter ways. He spoke a little more. He smiled more often, not just at her, but at life itself. The space he once kept around his heart had softened. He did not announce it. He simply lived it. One evening, while preparing a meal together, their hands brushed by accident. It was a small moment, but it stopped them both. She felt her breath catch, not from fear, but from awareness. He pulled his hand back at once, giving her space as he always did. "Sorry," he said. "It's okay," she replied, surprising herself. That simple exchange stayed with them, not because of what happened, but because of how it felt. Natural, unforced, safe. As days passed, moments like that became more common. Sitting a little closer by the fire, walking side by side, without distance, sharing quiet looks that said more than words. Nothing rushed, nothing assumed. She began to understand that love was not something that arrived suddenly. It grew slowly, through shared effort and understanding. It grew because neither of them demanded it. One afternoon, she found an old box while cleaning. Inside were a few things from his past. Simple items, worn with time. She brought it to him, worried she had crossed a line. He looked at the box, then at her. "You can look," he said, "if you want." He told her stories about each item. Not long stories, just pieces of a life lived mostly alone. As he spoke, she realized how much trust he was offering. His past was not dramatic, but it was honest. And honesty, she had learned, was a rare gift. In return, she shared more of her own story, still gently, still carefully. But this time, she did not feel ashamed. She spoke of the weight she once carried, the fear she thought would never leave her. He listened without trying to fix anything. When she finished, he said, "You're stronger than you think." Their days continued much the same, but the feeling between them had changed. There was warmth now, clear and steady. There was care in every action. Love showed itself not in grand gestures, but in daily choices, in patience, in trust. One evening, as the sun set low and the sky turned soft with color, they sat outside together. The land stretched wide and peaceful around them. She realized she was smiling without trying. "I used to think love was supposed to hurt," she said quietly. He looked at her, thoughtful. "I don't think it should," he replied. She nodded. "I don't either, not anymore." That moment felt like a closing chapter and a beginning at the same time. As time went on, she stopped thinking of herself as someone who had been saved. She had not been rescued. She had been respected, given space, given time. That made all the difference. She began planning for the future, not in fear, but with hope. She planted things in the ground, knowing she would be there to see them grow. She made small changes to the house, adding touches that reflected who she was. He welcomed every change without question. One morning she realized something simple and powerful. She felt at home not because of the place, but because of the person beside her. The cowboy noticed her happiness, even when she did not speak it. One day, while walking together, he stopped and turned to her. "I don't know how to say big things," he said. "But I'm glad you're here, not because of the arrangement, because of you." Her eyes filled with tears, but they were not heavy tears. They were light, full of release. "I'm glad too," she said. "I didn't think I could be." They stood there, letting the moment settle. No promises were spoken. None were needed. She thought back to the woman who arrived with no hopes, carrying only fear and exhaustion. That woman had expected nothing from life. She had prepared herself for survival, not happiness. But life had surprised her. Through quiet days, gentle patience, and steady care, she had learned what love really meant. Not control, not fear, not obligation, but choice, respect, and kindness that asked for nothing in return. The cowboy had taught her that love could be simple, that it could grow in silence, that it could feel safe, and she had taught him that opening his heart was not weakness, it was strength. Together they built something real, something honest, something lasting, and for the first time in her life, she did not wonder what she deserved. She knew